we're able to support, once we have the tools of our teaching methods and the technique, we're able to support people in learning how to work with their body and mind in a different way. We literally, when we turn people upside down, right, that shifts perspective, not only figuratively, but literally, right? So it has an opportunity to support the body differently when you see things from different perspectives.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Anti-Gravity Man Flycast. I'm Christopher Harrison. I'm here at the Anti-Gravity Lab in New York City, and we have a very exciting episode for you today because I am here with the curriculum director for Anti-Gravity, the amazing Darlene Casanova. You see her upside down over there. She is currently at our new studio, Anti-Gravity Lab NOLA in New Orleans, Louisiana. And it is our newest satellite. And she is here to join us to talk about all things anti-gravity and to help you get to know exactly who she is and how we started all this craziness together. Welcome, Darlene. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's wonderful to see you, Christopher.
I see you already got upside down today.
Well, of course I did. I mean, I don't have the ability to like get out of bed and get straight into it. That would be nice. I know somebody who does that. Just saying. But I can come down here into the new satellite studio in New Orleans and hang upside down pretty quickly within about, waking maybe 30 minutes. How about that?
Here's the thing. In order to see the world right side up, sometimes you got to start the day upside down.
Absolutely. No question.
We do. So listen, I wanted for people to get to know you a little bit better because many of our listeners already know who you are because they've done a lot of trainings with you or they've had conversations with you. But I kind of wanted them to know who Darlene Casanova is and have you talk a little bit about the new anti-gravity NOLA lab in New Orleans and how excited we are to be able to have a satellite there.
Where shall we begin? I love the concept of everything we're going to talk about. It's perfect. So where shall we begin? My personal history? Where do you want to begin?
You know what? Let's talk about Anti-Gravity Lab NOLA.
Okay. So what is exciting about AntiGravity NOLA is that we had or have and are utilizing the opportunity of expansion. What we do with our body is expansion. What we do with our mind is expansion. So we expanded into the south side of the United States so that Darlene would be at her home where she was raised, and as well to open up the possibilities for exploring new aspects of anti-gravity in a different area in the country. And so it provides us the opportunity to have two training spaces as opposed to one.
Well, it's exciting because I think that the South is a place that could definitely use anti-gravity. And New Orleans is one of the most amazing places in the country. And I will also say that it's just amazing we live in this technological era where we can do virtual trainings basically from anywhere. So you're able to be home more. And I know you're going to be back and forth and in and out, but for you to be able to be there with your family a little bit more is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And when you say going back and forth, that is the plan, to be able to spend time in New York when needed and then have my time here. I was thinking about this morning, Christopher, and I have like a real triad, a unity of my travels and where I've settled. If you think about it, raised in New Orleans, went to university in Salt Lake City where we met, right? And then New York, where I continued that process and I just keep going around to each one. I just keep ending up in one or the other at some point in life. And it's been really fun.
Well, you've circled us back around now to the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. And for our listeners, you should know that Darlene and I have been friends for over 40 years. We met when we were 2. And actually, we met in college where Darlene was the superstar scholarship student in the dance program, and I was a gymnast learning how to dance. And it was a marvelous thing because Darlene was the one that inspired me very much to fall in love with modern dance at the time. And then we both had a trajectory that was very similar. So after our days at the university, we both came to New York City. We both had careers as Broadway gypsies. We both had international careers. At one point, we were in Germany. I was doing Cats, and she was doing Starlight Express. She was doing a lead. I was just one of the. I was a litter.
Don't underestimate those cats in the litter. They were all powerful.
But and then we even got our equity card at the same theater. I mean, it's just been this really interesting thing. And the beautiful thing is that Darlene also was the very first licensee for anti-gravity in the United States, as far as outside of New York City. Um, can you tell us a little bit about Imagination Place? I certainly fell in love with that studio, and I wanted to start anti-gravity there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Would love to. That was a dream come true, Imagination Place. It was a center for music and movement. And I had a number of curriculums there that were both international brands as well as in-house programs that I had created myself. And what I love about it is that it really utilized the family unit and gave them the opportunity to explore and express in focusing on process versus product. We live in that world that it's all about the product, the end result, and my goal within that space, and at that time, and still is to focus on the process of how we get through the journey of, as opposed to the end result. Um, One of the things I think that was really cool is Christopher, when you walked through the door that day and started talking to me about anti-gravity fitness. And because that day opened up not only the door for the first licensee and affiliation in the United States, other than the connections in New York, but it also opened the door for the testing and the program AntiGravity Just Kids. And so we proceeded not only to begin to offer anti-gravity fitness for adults in its format that it was so cleverly designed and so brilliantly worked through, but we got to add to that the beginning beta testing for Just Kids. And then I was blessed with the opportunity to like move it forward. And 3 years later, we had a very, 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 and still do, a very strong program that supports children of all ages. Go ahead.
Anti-Gravity Just Kids is one of the programs I am most proud of. Um, and I think that the work that you did by beta testing all the kids there, and then that we did by putting it together, really makes it something extra special and unique. Certainly, uh, because you are a mother, and because you also
Mhm.
have so much experience in child development, I think that you brought all that to the table in creating that program, and that's why it truly is a very special program. So
Yeah.
I love being
And
able.
don't you
It's just so
and
much
don't you think
when you see kids playing at a hat. I mean, what's better than that? You know,
it's better than that? And to watch their growth and the gain of self-esteem and the courage and the blossoming that happens. And then I also think, Christopher, when I see again, when we talk about anti-gravity just kids, we have this because it's so exciting and it's so rewarding to watch children of all ages, because I'm going to talk about the adult who's the child at heart, right? Of all ages, we get to not only us, but all the anti gravity instructors all over the world get to watch people transform, whether they're a child or whether they're in the latter years of their life, in their 80s, even, right?
for kids, playing is natural, but for adults, we have to
Right.
remember. We forget how to play, and so a lot of the the curriculum that came into anti-gravity just kids came from my nieces and nephews having a hammock in their home since they were very little, and then from the imagination
Mhm.
space and watching kids just play and sing what their imagination came up with, and then codifying it. So it's very organic, um, and just a beautiful program. So I'm excited that we got to do that together, and that we get to share that throughout the world together. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
it is exciting.
The other thing that about you that's pretty magnificent is that you come to the table not only with all that experience as a performer and a choreographer and a mother and an instructor, but you also come to the table with a master's degree from NYU. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That master's program, I did that master's program when I was pregnant with my first child. Yeah, it was a doozy. I loved it being in New York, and at that time, it was wonderful to be able to delve into and indulge myself into even further into dance, choreography, and direction. And I really felt like that program supported the aspect of of overall tying all of the things I had been doing, tying it all together so that it actually put me on the trajectory. You know what I mean? Because that then put me in Salt Lake. That's when we walked through my doors. Imagination plays happened. All of those things sort of worked through. And then if you think about it even further, as time developed, change happens. Change is constant. It's the one thing we can count on, whether we like that or not. Sometimes is a whole nother story, but change is constant. And so, then I found myself not sure that I wanted to be running my own studio anymore, that finding it difficult, through the kids growing up and then the divorce, et cetera, et cetera. So we go through some hard things sometimes. And the bottom line is
And
that what
that's
ended up happening?
me, you in New York City. So it was kind of like
Exactly.
serendipitous. It was
The
perfect.
time the timing was
Can
perfect.
you tell
So,
our
yeah.
listeners really what a curriculum director does? And I know that around here you wear a lot of hats, but your primary hat is,
Loaded question.
but the most important thing you do is to guide our curriculum and to make sure that the concepts and the techniques that I've come up with wind up going out there and getting shared and wind up getting taught in such a way that they are a technique. That no matter where you learn anti-gravity, no matter where you teach it, you're teaching a technique that has the same nomenclature, that has the same sequences, and that you can actually be a part of a greater thing. And I think that because we both came from dance, which has such a strict background, because we both came from dance and me also from gymnastics, it gave us that understanding of structure and structure for movement.
Structure.
And so
Yeah,
it all
structure.
made sense to you and to me as to how to put things together and how to deliver them because of dance being being a huge part of our influence.
So, as the training and curriculum director, think of myself as the caretaker, and not only just the caretaker of the technique, but I also think of myself as blessed to be able to create as well. So Christopher and I get to create, not only Christopher and I, but there are other people around the world that we get to work with. And it allows us to um, watch the technique grow because the technique does evolve as well. It is a strong structure, and that is very important because a technique is a technique because it has structure around it and it's supported by time and history. Think of ballet or think of martial arts, and there's a very codified sense of movement. And,
The moan. I remember studying Martha Graham and all these different, you know, uh, these different dance techniques, Luigi. There's so many, and dance techniques, they're very specific. And so it's like
yeah,
you have specific patterns, specific ways of moving that are basically indicative of whomever the creator was of that particular technique or of that specific genre. And I think that's what we've done here. And it's been very collaborative in the way that we come up with it and put it together. So by having you
mhm.
mix and your strong background in modern dance and in choreography, obviously has been had a great influence on the techniques we have here.
Yeah, and what's been cool in our present time since I came on as director and the things that we've been doing is that we were able to take the technique, and even though it has always been accessible to all bodies and all student levels, we even got better at creating the drills leading up to and found, because of history, more modifications and variations within it, which is really cool because every time we do that, we're supporting more people. We're supporting and allowing for our trainers and instructors to have a broader sense and inclusion and integrity within it. So, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm going to credit you for that, Ellie, as I came from gymnastics and even the use of the anti-gravity hammock came from aerial arts. So I was always working with champion gymnasts and champion athletes. We started way, way, way up here and then brought it down to a place where it's accessible to everybody. But you've always been really great about making sure that we had, because you don't come from a gymnastics background, you were always great about making sure that we had proper progressions and modifications for people who don't necessarily have three-dimensional training awareness. You're laughing over there. Okay,
You
so
know what I'm, you know what I'm giggling at. You know what I'm giggling at. Go ahead.
also in New York City, and you're short, babe, and you have and you have a gymnast body. People always say, "Oh, can you do gymnastics?" And here Darlene is like, one of the most accomplished modern dancers and theater dancers in New York. And she would finish these auditions. They'd say, "Can you also do some gymnastics?" And you were always a little bit resentful, like, "I don't know enough already. I have to learn that too." So I remember you coming to Sutton Gymnastics, and we were like, "Okay, we're going to give you some gymnastics training." And at Sutton Gymnastics, it was amazing because they gave me the keys and let us have the place at night. And that's where we created so much of the anti-gravity movement vocabulary. In fact, those very mirrors from Sutton Gym, where we created the anti-gravity movement vocabulary, wound up being the same mirrors at Imagination Place in Utah, which is just so uncanny, the way that all just came about. Now, here you are, a lot older than your 20s, and you are now
Yeah.
basically doing gymnastics and teaching people and spotting people and teaching people how to flip. And that's because of you pushing me so hard to say, wait, what are the progressions here? And what's the modification for somebody who doesn't have that strength or doesn't have it? You've always been really great about that. And I think that that's one of the things you've added as the curriculum director is all of those progressions, making sure that I wasn't making assumptions that somebody could just do something. So I really honor you for that. And I think that a lot of our trainers around the world will appreciate you for that as well.
Yeah, I wanna say, we worked with learning how to really allow people to really fly, regardless of where they were in their own specific technique. And I'll also say that, I heard one of our instructors, who was it? It must have been Monica, I think, say the other day. He goes, "Yeah, I was telling people in the advanced class that these all these drills are going to help you to get there, but the bottom line is." You just have to trust yourself and you just have to go for it. Because look, I'm telling you, when I'm in this studio and Christopher and Darlene are over there working on these new tricks, especially the one we're just doing right now, Starfire Walkover, you would hear yelling like as if somebody was or whatever. The bottom line is it's not. What it was is that, Christopher would say, "Go for it. You got this. Go for it." And then I'd go, right? And it was like the roller coaster ride, but you go all the way down, right? So, there's always a fun
Darlene is a
aspect to
screamer, right?
working,
But
working.
you're definitely a screamer. We've had so many fun moments in that. But the thing is, because I have the awareness of what you're capable of, that I understand my kinesthetic intelligence and I know your kinesthetic intelligence. And I know the biomechanics of
That's right.
and the physics of the hammock. I know that you're going to be safe and that sometimes you just have to go for
Yes,
it. So I think
that's
that
right.
what was the first one? I think it was a falling star. I think it was falling
Oh, yeah.
star. Yeah, definitely teaching you the falling star. That was a big old scream.
Oh, oh, you know what so a memory's gone bang, 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 cowboy flip. It was cowboy flip
The cowboy
because you
flip.
had me there and I'm like, uh-uh.
Well, and it's also why you understand spotting so well and where you got to be and how you make
Yes.
somebody be
Yeah.
comfortable. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
I love that that is part of what you bring to this technique, and I think that we have
Yeah.
bookended each other very well
Yeah.
that way. I want to talk a little bit more about the work that we have done to be able to take this technique internationally. I mean, you have been since we started this, you have traveled all over the world. You've been working with all different languages and people from all many different countries. Sometimes we'll have a training, and on the screen are people from Saudi Arabia and Thailand and Taiwan and I mean all over the world, Costa Rica. And we'll have a group, and I love looking at it and just going, wow, look how much reach we have. And I remember the first time I went to Saudi Arabia was before they had men allowed, and it's before men were certainly allowed to be around women. I had to wear an abaya to get into the studio, and they had to sneak me in through the back. And it was before women were allowed to exercise. That
Yeah.
was we first took it to Saudi Arabia. And I know that you've done trainings all over the world, and you've been able to become much more culturally agile and learn so much about all the different cultures and how they learn and what their kinesthetic intelligence tells you about this culture. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, boy, those were some fabulous days in terms of being able to travel all over the world, as you say, and be able to work with all of the different cultures. And it is definitely interesting. I mean, there's so many places I just adore and people I adore and have gotten to meet. And it is, when we talk about kinesthetic awareness, there is a very different feel in different pockets of the world. Some cultures are tight, structurally. Some cultures are very flexible and open with laxity. Some structures, mind wise, in terms of like very, it's got to be to the T, right on the dot. They don't even go, defer from what the progression is in the manual. And then there are other countries that, it's like, what else can we do with this, right? And then we've got, the United States that can be very creative inside of it. It's just it's just very different. And I also think that how those bodies and minds work together when they come into the anti-gravity technique is that's pretty cool to watch, because that openness and that inspiration and that desire to invite others into their world has gotten so powerful, I think. So what I feel like anti-gravity has done inside of that, and I hope to continue and be a part of that process of inspiration in the world, is that as we continue to grow globally with training other instructors, we actually do get to see, reach, make a difference, right? Really make a difference, because it starts with the one, the one person who makes the decision to take on the technique, to become an instructor, to then become a trainer, and then in my case, become, you know, move into the as a director. But we get to broaden inside of this technique so wonderfully.
So, one of the things that we've had the privilege of doing together is to uplift humanity, literally and figuratively. So, when we talk about it in terms of just the actual work, we talk about scanning and spotting, and we talk about different body types and grips, reps, and traps. But when we take a step back and see what we're actually doing, it's been extremely heartwarming. And it's been very fulfilling to know that there is a purpose to what we're doing. And that purpose is to uplift humanity, literally and figuratively, but it's also to inspire people to be lighter in body and mind, to find their own creativity and their own innovation inside themselves, and to reconnect their body and their mind. And that's what I really do love about this technique, is that we see people having transformations. And you've had a chance to see that in different cultures all over the world. And you've also had a chance to see it in your classes, but you see it also in training instructors and training instructor trainers. You see the shift that happens once there's that aha awakening of, oh, this is not just exercise. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, because as we were talking earlier, it's really lovely to watch a child, gain courage and self-esteem and feel strong, yeah, and powerful. And yet we're doing that, absolutely have been doing that every day as we teach anti-gravity to adults. When I'm traveling around the world, and when I've had that opportunity to do so on a regular basis, I got to really see the differences in the cultures and the differences in the communities and how the body and the mind works. I just love, watching movement, and then I just love watching people transform. So I think it's why I love my job so much, because I get to support. Because it's a support. What we do is that we provide the space for people to shift and change and grow and transform. And I have many stories, as I know you do too. First of all, it's got to start with the one, right? It's got to start with the person to decide that they want to do something different in their life. And when they discover anti-gravity, we get a lot of people going, "Ooh, wow," because they have such transformative experiences that they then decide they want to be an instructor, or they even come to us already wanting to be an instructor. And we're able to support, once we have the tools of our teaching methods and the technique, we're able to support people in learning how to work with their body and mind in a different way. We literally, when we turn people upside down, right, that shifts perspective. not only figuratively, but literally, right? So it has an opportunity to support the body differently when you see things from different perspectives. And so there are places in the world, in the community, where we work with the students, and then I also get to then work with the trainers. And you know when I have a trainer that says to me, at first I just kept thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And then I realized, through the words and the repetition of what we're doing, utilizing the principles and philosophies, that, wow, okay, now what I'm really learning here is how to be beautiful myself so that I can shine for others and then support others in terms of inspiring them to be aware of how they are in the world. I know this is kind of esoteric in terms of what we're talking about right now, but it does have to do with both the physical and the mental and the emotional bodies, because that is how spirit soars, right? And so when we get to make these types of shifts in our personal self, in our communities, and then into the world itself, we actually are supporting a much bigger system in the world.
I find it interesting that when I first launched this technique, it was very much coming from the aerial arts and coming from my background in gymnastics and dance and Pilates and yoga. But it was very much about a lot more about, I think, the fitness aspect. But there was always the meditation aspect as well. But we really didn't understand at the time what we were doing for the nervous system. And there's been so much new information now about neuroplasticity and about the brain. And with that, we've been able to really come to some strong discoveries as to how the work that we do falls right in line with neuroscience. And one of the things that you bring to this technique that I've absolutely loved, it's been so beautiful watching you develop with this, is some of the sound healing, the sound baths that you do
Mhm.
with the bowls, and how you become such an incredible musician using not only the bowls, but also your singing voice that you bring from musical theater, but reconfiguring it into a beautiful art form. Can you talk a little bit about the mindfulness and meditation in motion, that course that we created, and how sound healing and aromatherapy and some of the things that you brought to that have been accepted?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I'm going to start with anti-gravity first, and then I'll build it out, because our proprioception and moving in the world in all directions of open space is actually really crucial to our continual development, and to staying, keeping our spine young, and keeping our bodies young, as well as keeping our minds agile. And so the thing is that when you use music as a catalyst, you're actually even supporting more, because it is a full sound. When you use sound healing and move into that dynamic or technique, it's the same thing. When the bowls are playing, you don't know where it's coming from. So that means your inner ear has to open into all directions of open space. So it is literally fine tuning the same systems as well. We're working on the same system. So I look at it as a quantifying support system. Each of the pieces really do match up together so well. They can be each individual, absolutely. But when I get to layer in the sound healing into our work, into anti-gravity fitness, to me, it's going even more into the supercharge, right? Of knowing and being aware that your body is the healing element, and you actually have the power to do so by allowing the openness to it, right? Connecting to it. So then when you add sensory of your smell, that's again another triad for me. I love triads. It's another triad for me, because it also it can open up the mind. It can either relax, energize, depending on what essential oils that you use. So I'm very, very intrigued, and continue to be, with my studies in what we do with anti-gravity, and to my studies with what I do with sound healing, with crystal tone bowls, which are alchemy bowls. So they're very powerful alchemies.
don't know what that experience is that we have a cocooning class. And we always have the cocoon that happens at the end of class where you lie in the hammock and you have a transformation. Our bodies are made of over 70% water, and we know that sound changes water. It changes the structure of water and the cellular structure, in fact, and we are water. So as I know that when I'm in your class and you're playing the bowls, I totally feel my body having a complete transformation inside. And I feel, that there's more than just the cradling and the swaying and the rocking and the the parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. There's something that's changing me cellularly with these sound. The same way that they change whenever the sirens go by over 8th Avenue. They just it's a little different kind of change. So I crave those sound bowls, by the way. But it's been really lovely
And let
to
me
go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we talk about it is cocooning, but also you asked me to speak about the mindfulness and meditation course, which that is what all of this culminates into, right? Is we took all of the pieces, AG, sound healing, and essential oils, and talked about how you can bring all of those things together. And so the course actually supports that. And so, yes, we have all the cocooning aspects of rocking and cradling and all those things. But there's also the class design actually really supports the mobility and agility before you do first inversion, which has a new inversion called praying mantis.
Yeah, that's a great fun one, by the way, praying mantis inversion. That's great. And that's in that course, right? Mhm. So, can you? I know that many of our listeners here are probably going to be certified anti gravity instructors. Darlene, if you were to be able to give one piece of advice to all the certified anti gravity instructors around the world that are listening to this podcast and that want to hear from Darlene Casanova, our curriculum director, what is the best way that they can be their best selves as an anti gravity instructor, that they can continue to evolve, and that they can bring to their students something beyond what they're doing now?
Stay present. So when you're in class, stay present. A lot of times, what happens is we start to pattern and we're not really there. The most important thing you can do for yourself is when you walk through the door of your studio, everything else is over there. And then you take the technique, you delve yourself into it, you live it in those moments as well as, well, I like to say live it outside as well, because that's the thing that makes a difference. I would say stay present. And then, of course, I gotta say, stay certified, because when you keep learning and you keep layering in your understanding of how to cue the principles in the philosophy, that's when your creativity blossoms even more. And that is when you are actually making the biggest changes for not only yourself, but you're assisting your students in doing the same thing.
So we were just talking about staying present and how important that is to stay present when you're teaching anti-gravity. And we talked about a little bit about the mindfulness and meditation in motion course that we've launched. But can you talk a little bit to our CAGI instructors about what we've done with the art of class design and what that particular course is?
So yeah, because that just lines right in with being present. The art of class design gives you an opportunity to learn the techniques that we use to keep our class designs in flow. So it teaches you how to support what's your introduction, what's your middle, what's your end. So how are you leading? How are you progressing? How are you taking the students on that journey of being able to get to, as yoga instructors talk about, the peak pose? So if you're going to do something like vampire, what vampire sequence, right? One of our signature sequences, what are you going to utilize along the way that will support the easefulness of understanding and being able to execute that, and maybe even take it into a swinging action, right? Depending on how advanced or how trusting the group of students you have in that moment. So you're going to learn how to put together the sections. You're going to learn how to put together the sequences and how to decide what is going to support all the way through, so that you can always reference back to. Say, for instance, you're doing a back angel flip because you really want to, right? Because when you do vampire sequence, you're going into a back flip, but you're caught, right? Rather than feet coming onto the floor. So what we've done, even is provide a variation that when you take back angel flip, you can then move into standing vampire. And it also feels like swoosh. So there's a couple of different ways that we're teaching you in terms of how you build that out, thinking about where you want to go or what's your theme.
Darlene, as the curriculum director for Anti-Gravity Fitness, if you were to have one piece of advice that you were to be able to give to our certified anti-gravity instructors around the world who are listening, what would that be?
Stay in contact with us. Stay involved in the things that we're doing in terms of giving us opportunities to work with you. When you are working with us, and we are going to create some of those opportunities to make it even easier. So when you're working with the community of trainers and the community of instructors, and we're all staying on task of what our purpose is, bingo. That's the thing I would say. Stay in touch.
I'm going to go ahead and finish with our quest. And that's that if we want to fix the planet, we have to start by fixing humanity. If we're going to fix humanity, we have to start by fixing each of our societies and our communities. In order to do that, we first have to fix ourselves. And we do that by reconnecting the body and the mind in the anti-gravity hammock. It has been a pleasure having you on the Anti-Gravity Flycast, Darlene. I'm sure we'll have other episodes where we get to delve a little bit deeper. But thank you for joining us. And thank you, my listeners, for showing up and for being part of our community. And that's it. Signing off. Fly high, everybody. Fly high.